Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Tonight we have a lot to talk about on the show. First up, Lamar Jackson back at practice in Baltimore today in preparation for the Steelers versus Ravens AFC North Championship game on Sunday Night Football this weekend. Also, does the Steelers' playoff opponent in round one of the playoffs already get locked in? We're going to talk about a recent story here that might lock in the number 5 seed in the AFC playoff picture. Then Diana Rossini, an NFL insider for The Athletic, says that Arthur Smith could be the perfect head coaching candidate for the New York Giants. Also, DK Metcalf's claims about what happened with his fan and that interaction in Detroit have been confirmed by Fox Sports' Jay Glazer. And then also we got a BS answer from head coach Mike Tomlin on Roman Wilson's usage last week against the Cleveland Browns. So make sure you guys stick around to see what his answer was to that. But before we get into the content today, make sure you guys click that subscribe button because Steelers Talk has been the number 2 highest growing channel in the entire Chat Sports family here. The only one that we're trailing right now is the Raiders Report that has added over 37,000 new subscribers, but we are only 162 subscribers behind the Raiders with just hours to go before the end of the 2025 year. So help us ring in the new year, not only by helping us be the number 1 growing channel in our company this year, but also help us get to 110,000 subscribers. We are now less than 200 subscribers away from getting to 110,000 before we get into 2026. So if you guys want to help us get there today, click that subscribe button. And what you guys get when you click that subscribe button is at least 2 Steelers videos for free on this channel every single day, breaking down the very latest surrounding the black and gold. Also breaking news coverage. It's going to be a very interesting offseason here in Pittsburgh. We're going to be breaking down every single big move that Omar Khan makes. It's all 100% free, guys. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And new viewers, if you haven't clicked that subscribe button yet, we are counting on you guys not only to be the number 1 growing channel in chat sports this year, but also to help us get to 110,000 subscribers before we ring in 2026. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. We greatly appreciate your guys' support. Now let's get into the news of the day, starting with Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson, who practiced fully today in Baltimore, coming off of his back contusion that he suffered 2 weeks ago against the New England Patriots, and he is now on track to play Sunday night in the AFC North Championship game in Acrisure Stadium here on Sunday night. And, you know, my take on this is good. I want to beat Baltimore with their best players on the field. I don't want to give Ravens fans the built-in excuse of, oh, we had to play Tyler Huntley. Of course the Steelers won. I don't want to give them that excuse. I want their 2-time NFL MVP quarterback out there when we beat them here on Sunday. So as far as I'm concerned, I want Lamar Jackson out there on the field on Sunday so that the Steelers can earn their AFC North championship if they win it. Now, in other news here, the Indianapolis Colts announced today that they'll be starting rookie quarterback out of Notre Dame, Riley Leonard, over Phillip Rivers in their Week 18 game versus the Houston Texans, meaning that Houston will likely be able to lock themselves in as the number 5 seed in the AFC playoffs this year. The Houston Texans are currently in control of that number 5 seed, and if they can take down Riley Leonard and the Colts this weekend, which I think is a probability at this point, they will be the number 5 seed. And if the Steelers can beat the Ravens, that means that the Houston Texans will be their opponent in round 1 of the NFL playoffs this year. And honestly, I kind of like that matchup for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I know a lot of people are scared of the Texans because they have a great defense. They got a young quarterback in C.J. Stroud that's had some good games here down the stretch. But it's a warm weather football team potentially coming to a frigid Acrisure Stadium here in January, and C.J. Stroud has always been a quarterback that has really struggled in cold weather. He's played some of the worst games of his career in the NFL playoffs in cold weather. So I'm looking at that as a matchup that the Pittsburgh Steelers could maybe grind out a win in the playoffs against, because I think, both these teams, maybe won't score all that much, but I think the Steelers would have a chance, especially at home, to take down the Houston Texans in the first round of the playoffs if that ends up being the matchup in 2 weeks. So if that is the matchup, if the Steelers win and if they play the Houston Texans, who do you think could win that game? Do the Pittsburgh Steelers win their first playoff game in a long time, type PIT, or do you think the Houston Texans come here to our house and take us down in the first round? If you think it's them, type HOU. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So in just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Polymarket. While I tell you about Polymarket, let me know who you think would win in this projected playoff matchup. It's time to challenge the status quo, and Polymarket is now live to help us do so. You can be a part of the revolutionary alternative sports books with our special invite code. Download Polymarket's new app now via the special link that is in the description and comments to unlock early access and a free $10 in your account with the invite code CHAT. Polymarket is a prediction marketplace that lets you make trades on the outcomes of sporting events. And as you guys can see on screen right here, you can even buy and sell within the game itself with live trading. Polymarket has the lowest fees ever. You trade against other people and not the platform, and you cash out anytime and react to momentum swings within the game. You are in control. It's legal and available nationwide in all 50 states on their iOS app right now. And for this week's Steelers game, Polymarket gives the Steelers a 38% chance to take down the Baltimore Ravens, which makes sense because the Steelers will be without DK Metcalf, Darnell Washington, and they just came off a loss to a then 3-win Cleveland Browns team. So $10 free is waiting for you guys right now. No card, no deposit, nothing. Download the app with our exclusive code CHAT at chatsports.com/Polymarket for exclusive early access and $10 free. Now let's move to Arthur Smith here, where an NFL insider says that he could be the perfect fit for the head coaching vacancy with the New York Football Giants. Dana Rossini from The Athletic made the connection here, saying that she thinks Arthur Smith could be getting some looks for head coaching jobs this year, and the Giants job might be the perfect fit for him. This is what Diana had to say earlier this week. She says, Arthur Smith is a name that I think is going to make some rounds here once again to get an opportunity to be a head coach, because Arthur has a really good, obviously, offensive mind, but he's not scared of these players. He's not scared to go up to the best guy on the team and say, yeah, that's not good enough. And that's what the New York Giants are looking for, because accountability is the biggest flaw in that building in East Rutherford. All right, man. And for me, guys, when it comes to Arthur Smith getting a head coaching position here, I think it's an interesting opportunity for the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Because I don't think Arthur Smith is necessarily the best OC in the National Football League. I think he's a okay OC. I think he's certainly the best hire at this position that Mike Tomlin has made recently, but he's far from a superstar. He's far from one of these guys that is like one of the up-and-coming stars in terms of offensive play calling in the National Football League. And although I think he's fine, an opportunity to get one of these younger guys, from the McVay or Shanahan tree is something that would intrigue me. However, if, it ends up being another hire for Mike Tomlin, who doesn't have the best track record hiring OCs. And if Aaron Rodgers is coming back and he's the one that's really driving the ship of who the next OC is going to be here in Pittsburgh, that does worry me, okay? Because Tomlin's track record isn't exactly stellar in terms of finding offensive play caller talent. And then, as we know, Aaron Rodgers brought in his buddy Nathaniel Hackett to be an offensive coordinator in New York. We all know how that ended up. So if Rodgers is the one that brings in his guy, I don't know if that's necessarily the best strategy either. So I guess we'll just have to see what happens. But honestly, guys, I don't think Arthur is going to get a head coaching opportunity, at least not in this cycle. And my guess is he is back with the Pittsburgh Steelers as their offensive coordinator in 2026. Now we can move on here to some recent news here on the DK Metcalf situation, where Fox Sports' Jay Glazer reports that security communications for the Seahawks and Lions game back in 2024, I believe it was on Monday Night Football, confirmed that DK's claims that a fan interacted with him in an inappropriate manner, where he was calling him the N-word and his mom apparently a C-word, and just a bunch of different stuff is being claimed. According to Glazer, there is eyewitness testimony essentially saying that that this is something that actually did happen back in 2024, causing DK to approach the fan a couple weeks ago in Detroit. This is what Glazer had to say. When we investigated during the game, the individuals around corroborated that the fan was being out of line and had indeed said these derogatory statements. They even asked us to remove the fan. Of course, his name is Ryan Kennedy. He had a really ridiculous press conference this week. Absolute clown, this guy. But in my opinion, guys, now that it's been corroborated that this guy did in fact, call DK and his mother these terrible things. Obviously, we're not condoning anything that Metcalf did, going up to this guy, grabbing his shirt, pushing him back into the stands. That should not be allowed by the National Football League. And by the way, I think that one-game suspension absolutely would have been, appropriate to give DK Metcalf. But the second game here, especially now that we know that this second game is going to essentially be a play-in game for the Pittsburgh Steelers to make the playoffs or their season is over, the NFL absolutely should let Metcalf play this week, lift that second game of the suspension. But unfortunately, that's just not going to happen at this point. We've known these details here, and I'm sure they probably even knew these details when they did the appeal, last week. But they decided not to change the ruling, and unfortunately, DK Metcalf is not going to be playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers this week versus the Baltimore Ravens, and the Steelers are going to have to find a way to win without him. And a guy that should be able to step up and might have to step up for the Steelers is a guy named Roman Wilson here, who unfortunately only played 9 snaps versus the Cleveland Browns last week in last week's embarrassing loss. By the way, Scotty Miller had 42 snaps, but Roman Wilson, our third-round pick from just last year, can't even get into the double digits. Mike Tomlin was asked about it in his weekly press conference yesterday, and I thought his answer was complete BS. This is what Mike had to say about Roman Wilson's snap count. Particularly when you're not winning third downs, I don't think anyone plays as much as they would like. We've had this conversation many times about running the football. I felt really good about our run plan. I thought we had an opportunity to really control the game through those means, and we didn't have a bad running day, but we certainly didn't have as good a running day as we could have had if we converted more possession downs. And I think the same could be said about levels of participation for guys like Roman, and thus their ability to impact the game. Now, the reason why this quote is BS, guys, is because, it's not even the total snap count that we're talking about here, guys. It's the total amount of snaps relative to the other wide receivers in the Steelers wide receiver room, all right? Scotty Miller, with all due respect to Scotty, he's like a wide receiver 5, or at least he should be. And there's been points in this season where Roman Wilson has started games over Scotty Miller, but because Miller caught a couple catches, in a couple weeks ago versus Detroit on a third and a fourth down, all of a sudden now apparently he has jumped Roman Wilson on the depth chart, and that's not the way that it should be, at least not in my opinion. I think Roman Wilson's a better wide receiver than Scotty Miller. So when somebody asked why is Roman Wilson only getting 9 snaps, the real question that they're asking is why is he not getting the snaps that Scotty Miller is getting, all right? And I understand the possession down football and all that stuff, but there's no excuse for why Scotty Miller, who's a lesser wide receiver in my opinion, to get 42 snaps, and Roman Wilson, a third-round pick from 2 years ago that's shown some promise this year, only gets 9 snaps. This has nothing to do with possession downs, but Mike Tomlin tried to make it about possession downs and not doing a good job on those third and fourth down situations when it has absolutely nothing to do with that, all right? You're putting an inferior wide receiver in Scotty Miller out there, and you're benching a better player, Roman Wilson, that could have helped you win that football game. That is coaching malpractice, and that is a BS response to a very valid question during his press conference. And honestly, guys, I think Pittsburgh should play Roman Wilson more this week. I know you're getting Calvin Austin III back into the fold here, and I'm sure he's going to have some sort of role as well, but we've been talking about it all throughout the week. I don't think there's a reason why he shouldn't be playing more than Scotty Miller. I don't think there's a reason why he shouldn't be playing more than MVS. MVS has been pretty much garbage since he's joined the Pittsburgh Steelers starting lineup, and Roman Wilson has done nothing but really show flashes throughout the year. Now, sure, has he maybe been in the wrong spot at times? Yes. Does he always run the route exactly the way Aaron Rodgers wants him to run it? No, but we've seen the same things from MVS, and, I think that we've seen more good things from Roman Wilson this year. So for me personally, I think the plan that I would do, guys, is I would have Adam Thielen in the slot. I'd give a lot of attention to Pat Freiermuth as well as a tight end. But then in terms of my 2 outside receivers, I'd have Calvin Austin III on one side and then Roman Wilson on the other. These guys have some speed. They can get down the field, all right? And if you have to throw a goal ball down the sideline, we've seen Roman Wilson probably be one of the better receivers on this team at stacking corners and getting open down the field. So I want to see Roman out there more this weekend. But unfortunately, I think they're probably going to play more of MVS. And with Calvin getting in here, I wouldn't be surprised if Roman doesn't get even a single snap on offense on Sunday night, which is a shame. Now, before I go here, I do have one more thing I want to talk about here, which is that Aaron Rodgers spoke to the media today in his weekly media availability, and it kind of sounded like, at least to me, like he is seriously considering coming back to play for yet another season in 2026, whether that be with the Pittsburgh Steelers or with somebody else. This is what Rodgers had to say earlier today. Obviously, I'm 42 years old and I'm on a one-year deal, so you know what the situation is. Whenever the season ends, I'll be a free agent. I would think maybe one or two teams would be interested in me if I decide I still want to play, but I've enjoyed this experience and everybody in Pittsburgh has been fantastic to me on and off the field. It's really what I was hoping for, and this experience has been even better than what I was hoping. So, it certainly sounds like to me that he's considering playing, maybe not in Pittsburgh, maybe he's got plans elsewhere, but there's a different quote here that certainly points to me that Rodgers is kind of wondering what a second year here in Pittsburgh would look like. This is what Rodgers had to say about this year's offense. He said, anytime you're in a first-year offense, there's always going to be some growing pains in the offense. So it's like you feel like if you had another year, what could you do? I look at 2019, the first year with Matt LaFleur, the way I played in 2019, and then kind of the adjustments we made in the offseason, and then the way I played in 2020, which was just kind of in a whole other level. I think a lot of that is just familiarity with the offense and with the guys. And we've done the best we could with our conversations and our meeting time outside of the facility and our meeting time inside the facility here in Pittsburgh. Obviously, the more years you get in the system with the same guys, the more continuity you have, the better you feel you can play. So it kind of seems like to me that Rodgers is almost making his pitch there where it's like, hey, this was the first year of me in this offense. Next year, I'm going to be even better because of the continuity of everybody here. So it kind of seems like to me that Rodgers is leaning that he wants to come back next year and he wants to have that continuity with Arthur Smith, with DK Metcalf, with this group of players, and then maybe you add a receiver or two, hopefully. But, if Mike Tomlin is still here next season, and I do expect Tomlin to be back next year, and Aaron wants to come back, and it's sounding to me like he's leaning towards coming back, I think he will be the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2026. And honestly, man, with the roster, with the way it's currently constructed, you don't really need all that much this offseason. You got to get a couple receivers, and then you got to figure out your left guard situation. And then there's a couple little things here and there. You got to get another starting corner and lock that in, all this different stuff. But at the end of the day, I think that you look at the Steelers roster as one that is pretty well set heading into 2026 with just a couple little pieces here and there that need to be implemented. And I think Rodgers, thinking about coming back for one more season at age 43 next year, he might be looking at the Steelers as his best possible chance to compete for a Super Bowl before he retires. Now, let me know down there in the comments section, who do you want the Steelers starting quarterback to be next season? This is not a prediction. This is not who you think will be the starting quarterback next year. Who do you want to be the Steelers starting quarterback next year? Try to keep it realistic for me down there in the comments section. For me, if I could choose anybody that's even within the realm of possibility, I would probably pick Matthew Stafford, even though it's probably a less than 3% chance he becomes available. But the Rams have been kind of, on a year-to-year basis with Stafford. I think that's a name that's at least within the realm of possibility, and I think that he would probably give you the best possible chance to win a Super Bowl before Cam Hayward retires. But it's definitely going to be an interesting conversation that we have this offseason. All right, that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors presented by Chat Sports. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. Of course, tomorrow we will be in 2026, and I'm looking forward to another year of great coverage on the black and gold right here on Steelers Talk with all of you guys. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next year, guys, here we go, Steelers.